If any of you are looking for any last-minute gift ideas for me, I have one.
Why does everyone give me fruitcake for Christmas? I hate fruitcake!
Why am I on Santa's naughty list? Why? Why?
My guess? Because he doesn't have a loser list.
Do you realize it's almost Christmas back home?
Yeah, it's easy to forget out here. We don't have seasons in Babylon 5, but I noticed.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You go to the party with those weirdos and Christmas freaks.
Oh, finally! Now I can watch my Christmas special in peace. Where's that TV clicker?
Now that Santa's dead, we can finally celebrate Christmas again. This is going to be the best Christmas ever.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to ThisWeekInGeek.net's annual holiday gift guide. If you can believe, we've been doing this for 15 years at this point. I am your host, Mike the Birdman, joining you from Guelph, Ontario, Canada, the land of the Guelph Storm, I guess. That's a hockey team. The Poppies Field thing in Flanders Fields, which is a poem about World War I. And I don't know, I'm sure we're famous for something else, but I'm not alone. If you can guess, he's my jolly holiday elf and taskmaster who keeps me working.
Alex, the producer, from the land of Google, Microsoft, and pretty much every other tech headquarters for Canada, and also Oktoberfest and beer.
Yes, and randomly future Dallas in the television show Heroes.
Yes, our city hall, while in the rest of the downtown looks old, like 100-year-old, it happens to be a very futuristic, stupid-looking building, which in the middle of the summer they used a bunch of weird fancy filter effects to make it look like Dallas.
So weirdness. So anyway, guys, as you may have mentioned or guessed, whatever, this is our holiday gift guide for the year 2021. So we have to thank some of our partners, such as Warner Brothers, such as Paramount, Modifius, GaleForce 9, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, many others. I'm sure that I'm leaving out. Sega this year has supported us, EA, Activision, but
PDP, a bunch of other hardware and software companies, which we respectively always talk about when we're reviewing them anyway.
Yeah, so some of these picks, we were sent some things for consideration, but they just didn't make it into the gift guide for whatever reason. Like I got a copy of some other games, and there's just a lot to talk about this year. This was an interesting year for video games and an interesting year for holiday gift guide because, and I have to get this out of the way first, is logistics right now is unbelievably messed up. So there is stuff, even stuff we're waiting for review, that's sitting on a cargo ship in the middle of the Bay of Los Angeles and stuff that's off the coast of Vancouver right now.
There's at least 2 gift guide consideration boxes that are still somewhere in California, and we've got some stuff that's stuck. Well, California is just because everything is like stuck at the port, and then West Coast Canada, anything else that we had come in there is underwater.
Yeah.
So like we may be having review items come in the new year, and it'll be, hey, if you've got money from Christmas left over, here's some stuff you might want to consider.
Yeah, basically, if your credit card is not maxed out. So that's why we have an interesting selection of both digital products and physical this year. So just if we're not covering certain things, that may be a consideration why, just due to logistics, because our general rule is when we review something or talk about it here on Holiday Gift Guide, we have to have had physical product with it, or we have to have had a good experience either through a friend who's had it or so on and so forth.
Yes,
we want firsthand knowledge more, or secondhand reliable.
And if it comes to games and movies and that, it should go without saying, but we want to state it anyway. These are all items that we have experienced to the fullest. This isn't just a case of somebody being like, hey, I think this is a cool game, you should buy it.
Yeah,
it is,
exactly.
It is getting the endorsement from us. So if we got a game or we reviewed a game and we realized that we didn't care for it, it's not making the list.
Exactly. So that's why there are some games I got for consideration, but I didn't get around to reviewing. Thus, they will not be included in this holiday gift guide. So without any further ado, we're going to try and break this thing into 12 items a piece and basically 12 items. So 10 here are some cool things and some honorable mentions, but the magic number is 12. So when you're hearing this, you have 12 shopping days left. And thankfully, to the wonders of digital delivery, a lot of these things can come to you almost immediately. So that was also another consideration for doing this. So we're going to start things off with my specialty, which is role-playing games and board games, which has sort of been the way my career's been headed in the last couple years. Cool. And the one that I want to talk about this year, I reviewed earlier this year, comes from Star Trek Adventures developer Modiphius, and that is the Fallout RPG book with dice. Now you might be saying, the Fallout RPG, don't you mean Wasteland Warfare? No, that's the minis game, and I'm not huge on that just because I'm not a war minis guy, because it's a little hard in my current physical setup, but that's neither here nor there. The reason I'm picking this is one of the most lore-friendly and accessible ways to experience the world of Fallout, because this is so focused on Fallout 4, which you can get for free on Xbox Game Pass. You can get it via PlayStation Now. There is no reason to not play this game. And if you've only have a tangential interest, because I know Alex, for example, doesn't like the video game, but I think you found the world interesting enough that you might give the pen and paper RPG a whirl.
It's not for lack of trying. I did try to play them, and it just didn't pull me.
Yeah, but I think the lore is interesting enough to get you involved.
It was the gameplay and in the video game, the gameplay and the design from that studio I didn't care for. The world sounded amazing.
Yeah, and I think Fallout, because it is based on the 2D20 system, once you get the hang of it, it goes by really, really, really quickly. Plus, reading how the book is written, it's obviously written by a super fan. It's written by somebody who has a lot of love for the franchise. And it's a giant love letter to fans of Fallout. I'm hoping this series will be supported. I'd love to see books on basically New Vegas, the California, or I think it's called the Republic of California, Brotherhood of Steel, stuff like that. I hope this RPG line continues, and it would be really cool if we got a Skyrim pen and paper RPG, because Elder Scrolls 6 is coming up. We just got Skyrim Anniversary Edition, and Modiphius also has a board game based on Skyrim, which I think you can check out. But continuing on to Alex, it is his go next.
Alrighty. Well, I've got one that I think slipped under a lot of people's radar this year, because there were actually 2 games released in this franchise. I'm talking about Monster Hunter, which we generally know as that the action taking down, giant monsters game, because it was pretty much, was it Monster Hunter World that took the world by storm in the last couple of years? Well, then they had Monster Hunter Rise, but what I'm talking about is Monster Hunter Stories 2. Both Rise and Stories 2 came out on the Switch very close to each other this year. But Stories 2 is the one that's more up my alley, in that it is the more traditional JRPG. And I'm always looking for new high quality releases. And in the past, Capcom used to put out a fair amount of traditional RPGs, not so much nowadays. So when one does come out like this, I sort of leap on it. And it is one that was sent for consideration, and I had a pretty good time. Graphically, it holds up quite well, which is honestly a concern with a lot of Switch games now with performance. As we've seen in the last couple of years, the Switch tends to get, frame rate issues because it's just not quite up to snuff with some of the ambitions of the creators. But this is a game that was made specifically for the hardware. So there's no porting involved. There's no worry about that. It runs pretty smooth. It's colorful, has all the fun that I would like in a JRPG. And it's one that I think a lot of people forgot about. But I think that would make for a good, gift for anybody that likes Monster Hunter, but also likes JRPGs.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was very interested, and I was very happy that Capcom was able to send this over for consideration, because the Monster Hunter franchise, it's something where I'm having that FOMO thing, fear of missing out, because I see so many people on Twitter and Facebook say they really love Monster Hunter, but I'm not good at it. But an RPG, that I can dig into.
Well, you know what it is? I think that with the rest of their franchise, it's if you're not somebody who likes like Shadow of the Colossus type games, where you're going and taking down a monster, and it's about figuring out the pattern to beat that one monster, that's not necessarily the kind of game that I personally like. But I do like when companies like this do games that, you know, expand their horizons, so it's not just the same thing over and over again. So here we've got this expansion into traditional JRPGs, and I think that the Switch is well suited for it, where I don't necessarily think that very precise, precision controlled action games, that's not something that the Switch does very well unless you have an exceptionally good team. Well, this turns out that it's an exceptionally good team for making an RPG for it. So I do think it's good. And I also wanted to make sure that I mentioned it simply because I feel it came out earlier in the year, and sometimes people forget about the games that came out earlier in the year.
Yeah, it's true. So moving on to our next recommendation, once again sticking with RPGs, but the traditional pen and paper from myself, comes yet another selection from Modiphius. I actually did an extended discussion with one of the writers, and he's also a host here on the show, so full disclosure there here, and that's Aaron Paulier. I'm talking about Star Trek Adventures, the Shackleton Expanse, and this is for, obviously, the Star Trek Adventures licensed RPG game. Modiphius has done something that I thought was impossible since the era of West End Games, who was the publisher of the Star Wars RPG D6 way back in the 90s and in the 80s. They give you such a rich, detailed sandbox that has been more or less been given the blessing of the IP holder. And what the Shackleton Expanse is, if you want to go listen to our extended coverage of that, it's on Future Imperfect. But long story short, it's an area of the Beta Quadrant that has never really been explored. So the Klingons and the humans run a base in the Shackleton Expanse, and they're sending out science teams, exploration. There's also new spatial phenomenon. There's stuff about stellar nurseries. And there's this really unusual spatial thing called the washboard, which can really screw with warp engines. And there's a 10-part adventure, I think there is in the book, which introduces a new alien species and threat into your game. But it's also open enough where, if you remember during TNG era, they also theorized, well, maybe the Borg had already had places in the Beta Quadrant, which is why when there were Federation colonies falling around season 2 or 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation, you could tie this in. And they also give you examples of play for the original era. They tie it into TNG and kind of modern era stuff if you want to move things up in your particular timeline. It's incredibly well written. And if you want to get away from the era of Discovery and you want to get more into Lower Decks, and I know that's more but what I'm meaning by that is you can stay with the quote-unquote current timeline and you can explore Star Trek Adventures in new and wonderful ways. It's one of the best campaign books I've read in a really, really long time for any licensed property, and I'm really glad that I had a chance to take a look at that. So definitely that is Star Trek Adventures, the Shackleton Expanse from Modiphius.
All right, on to my second pick. I have we're going into hardware and headphones, which is sort of, I guess, starting to become my specialty, if it already isn't. And that is the EPOS H3 Pro Hybrid. Long-sounding name. That seems to be the standard for a lot of these tech out there. But what makes these headphones and headset different is it's probably the most comfortable headset I've ever worn. I got a big noggin. And sometimes stretching out the headphones to the right length, it's like pushing it to the brink, or it's stretching it out. Not in this case. Super comfortable ear cushions. They move in different directions so that they cup your head and doesn't really hurt or anything. And decent quality audio. We're not talking like super expensive high-end audiophile stuff, but you get there's diminishing returns with that, especially when you're doing in wireless mode. A big bonus with them is that you can charge them and wear them at the same time. A lot of headphones that are wireless headphones, when you plug in the charging cable. Let's say you're playing a game or you're watching TV, you plug in the charger, and it will turn the headphones off and not have a mode that allows you to trickle charge while you're while you're playing. These are ones that do. So you can go, oh my god, my headphones are basically dying, but I can't get up and swap them out, and I'm playing a game. You can just plug your charging cable in, and it will just continue to charge while you play. That's always a good feature I look for. Another feature with these, other than being high quality Bluetooth headphones that have a pretty significant, dozens and dozens of hours of play before needing to be charged, is it has a boom mic that moves down on the left like your standard headset. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you have headphones like that, they're just like a cable that plugs in and plugs out, and then there's just sort of a hole in its place. With these guys, the entire left plate where the actual microphone plugs in can be removed, and it comes with a little plastic cap that covers it. And when you do that, it basically just turns them into regular wireless headphones. So you don't have this uneven looking headset. And I just keep the microphone unplugged when I'm watching TV with it, and keep that in the original box that it came in. High quality stuff. We reviewed headphones from them this year, as well as I believe it was last year, the year before. And I'm very, very impressed with the comfort level. I'm actually going to have to, next time we visit, bring them by to let you wear them so you can feel what I mean, because they almost feel like they're not on your head at all, which is surprising for a full size over the ear headphones. High quality stuff. I use it for all my TV purposes in the last month or so since I've had them, and I use them for when I'm playing certain games that don't require the microphone, but I could plug them in and use them that way if I wanted to.
Okay. Moving on to our next pick. This one should come as zero surprise. Again, sticking with RPGs for just a little bit longer. This one comes courtesy of Free League Publishing. I got sent an early review copy of this, and my lord, this is exactly the book that I've wanted since I was a kid. Now that I'm overselling it, what the hell's he talking about? I'm talking about the Aliens RPG Colonial Marines Operations Manual. If you've ever wondered anything about how the Colonial Marines operate in the Aliens universe, because the movie doesn't really hint at a lot of these things. It's only been the comics, the novels, the audio dramas, and to a lesser extent, some of the video games have really kind of hinted at it. This is it. They give you so many stats, so much history. They even talk about the Octurans, which is, if you remember the line from Aliens, well, the one you had was a male. It don't matter, and it's Octuran, baby. So there's that. But you're also getting stats for some of the Kenner alien toys. That blew me away. So if you have the toys from the 90s and you go into the vehicle section of this book, you're like, holy shit, they did it. And that impressed me. I was like, that alone shows the care and the dedication to whoever is in charge of this IP and trusted Free League with this. This is it. I'm hoping in the future, if I may just kind of go off script for just a moment here, there's another RPG system that these guys do, and it's called Tales from the Loop. Which Terrible Warriors has played, I think.
And I think there's an Amazon TV series based on
it. Yes. But if you wanted to license the role-playing game system, like the nuts and bolts, you could put Stranger Things there. So there's a lot of really cool games from Free League Publishing. The game, obviously, I will die for is the Alien RPG. I recommended it last year with, I think it was Destroyer of Worlds, which I have a named NPC, by the way. But Colonial Marines Operations Manual, it's exactly what I wanted. If you want to run a long-running campaign in the Aliens universe, I think this is essential. You can build campaigns around combat synthetics. You can build it around other alien threats, not just what's talked about now. There is no Predators/Yacha because they don't have the license to that I'm aware of. But it gives you so much lore to play with, gives you new stats, new weapons. It's very cool, and I was so pleased to read it. It's definitely one of the highlights this year for licensed RPGs, and I think it is going to be a point that Free League's really going to have to try hard to top with their next Aliens expansion, which I think has to do with people that explore planets. So we'll see what happens there. So Alex, take it away.
Well, I'm just going to continue on with some more accessories. It's sort of a cop-out in that it's 3 items that I previously talked about in the last week or two, but they do sort of fit a motif or theme, and that's PDP's Animal Crossing themed accessories for the Nintendo Switch. They have a pull and go case, which is like the top part of the pull and go case. It's all themed to look like the color schemes of the new Animal Crossing game, but the top part is one of those portable Switch carriers, where you can just put your Switch with the Joy-Cons in, but it then has these clips that clip into a larger case on the bottom, so it sits on top. Think of it almost like a lunchbox that has like the thermos on top. Remember those as a kid?
Yeah.
It's like that, where it has a detachable, smaller case. The bottom part of the case can fit like your dock and all of your controllers and everything. And it looks good on a shelf, which is a big factor too, because if it's just a plain case, people will just toss them pretty much anywhere, but it's something you could put on a showpiece. And paired with that, they also have their Face-Off Deluxe audio wired controller, which is officially licensed. So it has the color scheme and it has Tom Nook on the front. So if you're looking for something, to just, again, store in the case, or you're looking for an extra controller that you can use with anything, but specifically for somebody who's really, and there are a lot of really big Animal Crossing fans. There are people that bought the entire console just to play that game. And it's all obviously decently priced. And the last is they have a headset that goes along with it. We've actually reviewed the Level 40 wired stereo headset from them before, but they have a blue and green one that matches the color scheme of that, which again, you could all fit it into your case. Like you could even keep it as like a travel pack if you wanted to. And I was going to try to pick one of them to put on the list because, we're only selecting, our 10 items plus a couple honorable mentions, but I felt that they were so closely related that you could sort of count them as a bundle, even though you'd have to buy them separate.
Fair enough, because that's kind of where I'm going with my next pick, actually. And this is a board game, and one is a social deduction game. One is sort of a diplomacy type game. So what I'm talking about, both of these come from GaleForce 9, and they are Dune Betrayal, which is sort of like social deduction, figuring out who is the leader. Basically, the spice must flow sort of thing would be how you kind of figure that out. And it's interesting, and it's short and it's quick. It's really easy to learn. And with Dune coming out on digital, I think it's available now. Home video is next month from Warner Brothers. We're going to get it in 4K. I jumped on the Dune hype train a little while ago. I saw it for the first time. Thank you, Premium Movie Rental. Holy shit, this universe is cool. And I never thought they could pull it off from everything I'd ever heard.
Isn't it kind of what you had hoped the John Carter of Mars movie would have been if they had actually done it well?
Like it's so big in scope, and the Dune IP is so cool. And the other game that I got from GaleForce 9, typically it kind of reminds me of the Battlestar Galactica game that came out like a million years ago, but it's called Dune, a game of conquest and diplomacy. And basically you have 5 turns to win, if I remember this right. So you have to either control the most territory or control the most spice. And you can call out people that are traitors. You can battle forces. It plays really easy with like 2 people, but you can play more. There's other specialty rules where you can play multiple factions at once, I think. It's just really good use of an IP with a really well-designed game that if you like the Dune movie and you really want to dig into it, this can certainly go a long way into scratching that spice itch. So whether you're House Atreides or House Harkon, it's really neat. And one thing I didn't get a chance to review this year, I actually literally just asked for it a little while ago. Modiphius also puts out the Dune pen and paper RPG. And I hear that went over really well this summer.
You know what? GaleForce 9 and Modiphius should be thanking Denis Villeneuve for reviving, what people thought was going to be maybe a dud of a franchise. They're going to get so many more eyes on this because of how good that movie is.
Yeah, and the fact that the movie art is splashed all over both of the GaleForce 9 products here is, I think, a really big selling point, because I know the Frank Herbert estate hasn't had the best track record, and as we record this, a new Dune game was announced at the Game Awards. I think it's called Spice War or something like that.
And it's one of those, what do they call it, a 4X game, which is basically the civilization style games where you control the economy, you build it up from the scratch, sort of like the hard and intricate version of a real-time strategy.
Yeah, and I think with this IP, providing we don't have to wait a million years between movies, I really hope it keeps going, because I hope
it'll have legs, because this summer we're getting the prequel series on HBO Max.
Oh wow, so it's going to be awesome.
And Denis directed the pilot for it too.
Oh wow, so yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be a Dune fan. You definitely won me over. Now I know where that line comes from, where fear is the little death and all that, and just I'm so impressed. And the fact that I can play board games with Liam next door, I can play it with you.
Exactly.
And I can yell traitor and stuff like that. That's fucking awesome.
New movie and this whole revival of the franchise, so much more memorable than the only thing people remember from the '84 movie was
Sting in a Speedo.
Was Sting in a Speedo screaming, "I will kill him."
So yeah, you can check that out from GaleForce 9 Games, wherever. We will have a link, obviously, where there's going to be links here in the show description along with pictures, but you can also check out your local brick and mortar game stores if you want this more immediately. I think Amazon would have these in stock, but look around. Totally worth your time if you want to go back to the world of Dune and kick the crap out of some sandworms.
Alrighty, and moving on, I have this is my only other pair up of films, and it's because they're both released around the exact same time and sent by the same person, and I just received them this week. It's just in time for Gift Guide and for me to have a chance to watch them, and that's Kino Lorber, which if you were a listener a couple of years back, we were getting a bunch of stuff from them before to check out. They're sort of the boutique art house cinema company that restores a lot of classic cinema and now a little more into TV, and put them out on Blu-ray, and they don't use like any weird digital noise reduction tricks or anything. It's just the pristine film print as remastered as it can be. They put out 2 TV releases that I've really had my eye on for some time. The first is Kolchak the Night Stalker. Now, if you don't know what that is, or you maybe have heard of it, there was a remake show that lasted, I think, 1 season about 10 years ago. But this is the original 1970s series that my dad remembers when he's like, "Oh, I remember that show." It was basically the X-Files before there was the X-Files.
And that's with Darren McGavin, right?
Yes. There were 2 TV movies that aired before it. And then it became a TV series. And my dad was telling me that he goes, after I didn't know he was a fan. He said, "Oh yeah, we used to sit as a family and watch it in the 70s."
Now, did you know, if I remember correctly, I'm not 100% sure of this fact, so I could very well be talking out of my butt, but I think the X-Files and Kolchak the Night Stalker literally take place in the same universe, because I know there's an episode of the X-Files where Darren McGavin shows up.
It's very possible, or maybe it's a wink. It doesn't say specifically. We'll have to do some research, but in watching it, the show looks great considering it's the mid-70s. I do know that David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, got one of his early starts in the creation of this show back in the day. So it has a lot of guest stars that were popular from the time. You got your Tom Skerritt's, your Scatman Crothers, Dick Van Patten, a bunch of people that, even if you don't know the names, you know the faces. But they've put all the episodes on there. They're in pristine quality, and there's interviews, and there's 21 audio commentaries for 20 episodes.
Holy
so that tells you anything.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? And and they've gone back to the original negative. And to go along with that, this is one that I really hope they continue on and release more of. They also sent over Night Gallery, season 1. Now that is the spiritual successor to Twilight Zone, that was late 60s, early 70s. I think the pilot was from 69. And Rod Serling introduces it. Probably most famous for the pilot movie and are part of the pilot movie, and a few episodes in the first season being directed by Steven Spielberg right out of college. And I think I'm gonna have to bring this over for you to watch too. But you saw like the old DVD TV print. I think I showed you the scene from the pilot, which had it's the one where the Nazi is wishing he could be in a picture.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets found out that he's a Nazi, and he wishes to go in the picture, and lo and behold, he gets in the picture, but it's not the picture he thought he was praying to be into, and he gets into this picture of somebody being tortured in hell.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, and like for 1970, it's pretty sweet. Again, really well remastered. There's audio commentaries on pretty much every episode. And there's one of the most interesting things here is there's a feature that I was watching called the syndication conundrum. And what it does is it shows the show's life in reruns, and it shows side by side what they cut for reruns. And sometimes they ended up cutting like crucial parts of the episodes. So like a side by side screen, the left hand side of the screen will show what the original print looked like, and then they put in blank like black space for parts of the episodes that were cut out in syndication. And it's like, no wonder it's one of those shows that people talked about in such high regard, but then when you hear people that only ever saw it in reruns, they're like, it's okay. It's because they would cut like 5 minutes of footage from every episode. So these are that's
ridiculous.
Exactly. These are the uncut original broadcast versions remastered from the original print negatives. Highly recommended. It is one of those things where the first season was a short mid-season replacement, so it's only 6 episodes plus the pilot movie, which is like 2 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not overly expensive. It's something you can pick up. Like they have it on their website, like, you know, an MSRP of $50, but it's on sale for like $25. So hopefully they can do more. And that's again why I sort of paired them together, because they came out around the same time. They're similar in theme, and there's something that whether you're getting it for yourself, but these are shows that your parents or grandparents will love if you have a Blu-ray player.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to my last RPG pick, and it's a big one. This one comes courtesy of Wizards of the Coast, and holy shit, where do I start with this? Because these guys have really had a really good year when it comes to releasing books for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I have reviewed Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. I got the Witchlight Carnival, the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is basically a Feywild adventure. There's Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, which ties into the Magic the Gathering. And then recently-ish, there was the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, which introduces new dragon types, including one that's like a lich, or not a lich, like a mind flayer type thing. Don't fuck with it. There's psionic dragons now.
A lich dragon would be terrifying because it would be intelligent and could use magic.
I think there's one. I'm pretty sure it is. Either way, but yeah, like honestly, looking at all these books, there really isn't a bad one in the bunch. I like how Fizban Treasury of Dragons really expands out the idea behind a Dragonborn, where you can get new backgrounds and new character traits based upon your kind of background as a dragon. Like you might gain resistances to certain environmental damage. You might gain new feats. There's also rules in there for what happens to magical items when they're in a dragon's horde, stuff like that. It's a really cool book if you're in the Dragonborn like I am. But one unexpected bit, I am not in the Magic the Gathering at all, but Strixhaven is more or less magical university. So think of it as D&D Harry Potter with a Magic the Gathering paint a coat put on it. It's like literally I think it's an adventure for levels 1 to 10, I think. And you can be all these different types of basically mage and magic user, and they're all different, and you could easily integrate this into, I think, a Faerun campaign with a little bit of tweaking, because the place exists on another material plane, I think. And like I said, I don't know a lot about the Magic the Gathering lore to really dig into it, but interesting ideas. Plus there's like new races, there's new feats in there, there's obviously new spells and stuff. Some of them are really cool. it's just a fantastic book, and I'm going to be doing more in-depth reviews of these at some point in the near future, just because we are taking a break soon, but that doesn't mean stuff stops coming in. So there's going to be stuff on Turd or Treasure, so you may hear that between now and the end of the year, and before when we come back on January. I think I have it marked down as like the 17th. We're coming back third week anyway. But yeah, Wizards of the Coast really hit it out of the park this year. There's also a new Dungeon Master screen. There's new dice. And I like the Witchlight Carnival dice because they came out in September, which means they were just around the corner for Halloween. And they are these ridiculously bright orange dice. And I like them because they're easy as hell to read. They're really nice. Although
I think a lot of people don't think about when purchasing, like, ooh, pretty, and then you're like, try reading that in low light.
Yeah, like my favorite dice I've ever gotten from Wizards is still probably I think Rime of the Frost Maiden got a set of them, but the Witchlight Carnival ones, because as again with my unique setup here at my apartment, low light is a problem. These dice are so bright and so vivid. You can actually read them. It's super easy. I like them.
Which is amazing. And maybe you should suggest to them, if you could, I don't know if they've ever done it, but how about plain white dice that glow in the dark, so you can clearly see like the black ink on the the numbers contrasting against the glow in the darkness?
Yeah, like there's so many good ideas in the dice world, but so few of them are ever really pulled off. And I like how these things retail typically for under like $30. There was a set that I reviewed last year from Laurel's Silverhands Explorer kit, and that came with some extra kind of goodies in there that I thought was really cool. But not seriously, Wizards has had a fantastic year for books. And if I had to recommend 2 specific books from this year, I would really recommend Fizbin's Treasury of Dragons. Like I said, some really good stuff there. If you want to, this is about the closest we're going to get to a book that details everything Ravenloft. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, that came out in May of this year, and that's completely worth checking out. And there's a huge box set coming out next month. I don't have it yet, but you get, I'm just going to make sure that you know what you get, because I have to double check this. You get Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Fantastic book. That's the big beholder. Tash's Cauldron of Everything, and Monsters of the Multiverse, along with a DM screen. Monsters of the Multiverse is a new book, and I haven't read it yet, but it sounds really awesome. Just multi-planar monsters. And should we ever return to D&D 5th edition, wow, you guys are so fucked. It's amazing. So anyway.
As if accidentally rolling a whole bunch of ones and killing our whole party wasn't enough.
Shut up. But yeah, so those are my picks.
I seem to remember, I think, did Tristan's character roll a 1, throw his sword up in the air, and it landed on top of his head and killed himself?
Yeah, it was some really weird Monty Python-esque comedy of errors.
I think he rolled 2 critical failure 1s in a row, and it's like you raise your sword up to swing, it flies out of your hand and lands on yourself.
Yep, it was like, well, that's physics. And so yeah, so that was a fun time. Wizards of the Coast, like I said, has done a lot of really good stuff this past year, and it's hard to pick just one. So honestly, pick the stuff that's gonna fit your life and your campaign for your players, but also don't sleep on something like the Feywild book that I mentioned, because you get to play as bunny people and fairies if you really want, and it's just an interesting setup for an adventure for your players. So those are my picks for there, and going back to Alex.
All right, well, my 5th pick is something I talked about last month, which is the Circuit Mess Nibble, and that is, I wanted to put something in here that was educational. And before you start screaming at me, I don't want an educational toy, this is not your granddaddy's educational toy. The Nibble is a fully featured, fully functioning handheld gaming device. Like think like 8-bit games like you would have played on the Game Boy. But it's a kit that you put together yourself. And I'm not talking like a cheap Chinese Alibaba garbage kit. I'm talking a precision engineered kit that comes with a soldering iron. It comes with everything you need to piece it together, except if you're under 12 or 13, adult supervision obviously being required. But the idea is that it gives you very easy to use instructions to and all the tools necessary to piece together the board. You learn about the electronics and how it works. It's a very simple thing. Like you're only soldering very few components. It's like beep 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 beep, done. They even include like fail-safe extra parts just in case you do something wrong. And once you get it all put together, you connect it to your computer, and you have a bunch of free games that you can download to it, and it comes with a tool that you can use to code your own games. And we're not talking like overly difficult. We're talking like scripting and basics to build your own building blocks. Built in with the software that downloads to it, it comes with like a snake clone, a clone of Pong, a clone of Asteroids, and a clone of Space Invaders. And it is a fun little device. It works on 3 AAA batteries. There is a version out there that uses a rechargeable lithium, but because you're ordering, this is coming from the European Union, so you're not. I think there's laws about shipping batteries in certain areas. So there's 2 versions. If you order it online, you'll probably, if you're getting it airmailed to you, you're probably getting the one that has the battery compartment. And if you're looking, they might have a version that can ship the battery separate if you wanted to get the lithium one. But it is neat that it's one of those STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that focus that we're having now in especially in the West for kids growing up. Like this is something that you can get as a tool for the family or to put together, or like kids can try it out, get them interested in computers and engineering. But at the same time, it's easy enough to put together that it's not daunting or scary. I did it. And like, I'm a technical person, but I had never soldered before. Ever.
I last time I remember soldering was like, I think my grade 8 tech class, or maybe in shop class.
Like
it's been a while.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like, and that's like, we're talking like with a little tiny soldering iron. I was like, how have I never done this? It's just my job as a computer repair guy never actually required it, because I wasn't the guy that worked on laptops. And generally, if you worked on a laptop, you had to be able to solder because all those components were small. So this is actually a tool that even me in my mid-30s, I was like, oh, it's not as scary as I thought. It was actually a good first project. But the big thing with it is that it comes as a kit that you can put together, and it comes with everything you need. A lot of the kits that you see out there will be like, here's the components, here's an instruction sheet that's too hard to follow, figure it out. And no, this is all of the tools you need, all the soldering equipment, instructions on how to do it. There's YouTube videos for it. This is the company that is also putting out other interesting do-it-yourself build projects, like one that is like a DJ mixer kit, do-it-yourself mixer. They have a cell phone you can put together that will let you do basic texting and phone calls, and it plugs into the computer and plays games and stuff. And it's not out just yet, but it's something we're going to want to keep an eye on. They're the ones that are putting out that remote-controlled, do-it-yourself piece-together Batmobile.
I thought so.
So it is licensed, and it's like officially a product that is, I guess, being supported. So it's not like, hey, it's the bat or not Batmobile, it's legally distinct. No, it is like the Batmobile that they put together. But this is something that I felt, they sent out. It's something that I think is near and dear. It's like, wouldn't you like to build your own Game Boy? And it's about the same size as a Game Boy Advance. Was it Micro? That size, that form factor, it's small enough you can fit it in your pocket, and it's pretty neat. And it's fun to play around with, and I'm going to probably program my own games here and there with it, but is as like a little hobby project. So there's my educational toy that's also a fun thing.
All right, so that sounds pretty cool, actually. So moving on to my pick, which is definitely not an educational toy, but hey, we're going to talk some TV. This one comes to us from Hasbro. This is the Transformers Studio Series Retgar. He is from the 1986 movie. He was portrayed by Eric Idle. and he's the annoying robot guy who talks completely in television slogans like
or your money back.
Exactly. He's awesome in the movie. He is the leader of the Junkions, which is a faction of robots on the planet of Junk who helps Rodimus Prime and Ultra Magnus defeat Galvatron and Scourge and Cyclonus.
And you know how he does it, because he can eliminate even the toughest stains.
Exactly. And this is one of the nicest figures in the Studio Series line, because like the Studio Series has really been focusing on presenting the best versions of these classic characters. Like they've done Bumblebee from a couple years ago, from that movie with Haley Stanfield. There's also ones from Dark of the Moon, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And they've also done, most of the Michael Bay movies. But the Transformers 1986 line, that Studio Series, really stood out to me. And this is a toy that I got for review, but I do have others in the line. Like I've got Grimlock, I've got Jazz, I've got Blur, I've got Cup. I've got Hot Rod as well. I've got every single 86 one. I've got Perceptor on pre-order right now. And for about $45, it's one of the nicer Transformers that isn't a masterpiece level figure, which might be a little more complicated, maybe a little nicer. But the Studio Series, when it comes to the G1 accurate colors and posability and just overall ease of transformation, this cannot be beat. And Retgar is just one of those characters. You love him or hate him. He's been voiced by Weird Al in other alliterations of the character. And I don't know, there's something just kind of magical about a motorcycle that if you had the right action figure that had the right posability, I'm pretty sure a Marvel Legends Spider-Man or the Winter Soldier could fit on this thing with the right level of posability. So that's kind of fun. So Retgar, definitely, I'm going to talk some TV and recommend him or your money back, as Alex might say.
Yes, and now moving on into movies. I've got one here that we talked about earlier in the year, and that is Tremors got a 4K remaster on ultra high def discs from Arrow Video. And this is one of my top three. Is it really a horror film or is it just a thriller? Like it's
kind of a horror comedy is what I'd call
it's like a monster horror thriller comedy. It's that weird hybrid that happened in the late 80s, early 90s. And this the history of me in this movie is that it was one of the first movies I owned myself on VHS when I was like 8 or 9 years old. My uncle bought it for me. Now this is the same uncle that bought me Blazing Saddles and other R-rated comedies when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. My parents were like, yeah, sure, we don't care.
This explains so much about your sense of humor.
It explains so much. And I remember asking him, like, after he finally had kids himself, I'm like, so do you let him watch? He's like, no. He goes, I can ruin you. I can't ruin my own kid. But that's where I get a lot of my sense of humor from, obviously. He's the uncle that looks a lot like John Oliver. Like almost identical to him, actually, which is funny. But so I go back with this film, over 20 years, and seeing it remastered in like pristine 4K, because it had a Blu-ray release before, but it was from the late 90s when they would do like remastered in HD, but it was 1080i and it was for like satellite broadcast. No, this is a full remaster. Also, in addition to the 5.1 surround soundtrack that they had made for home video years ago, it's restored the more uncommon 4.0 quadraphonic sound that it originally had in theaters. So if you want to, you could set it up to make it sound and sort of look like it would have in theaters. I still prefer 5.1 audio because I like having the dialogue come out of the front if I can. There's like new audio commentaries, a bunch of other extra features. It's if you know Arrow, they basically put every feature under the sun in it as they can. And one thing I had not seen before, I'm not even sure if it was on other releases, I just maybe never noticed it, is that they have deleted scenes as well as the original opening scene, which is different.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because the only way I saw Tremors was, for those of you Canadian listeners, CTV used to show movies on Friday night. And for probably about 15 years, that was the only version I ever remember seeing. It wasn't until I saw it, I think I either saw it on a streaming service or someone brought over a disc and I watched it that way. I think I talked about this with like Andrew Roebuck.
A lot of people had the DVD attack pack that included all the movies and the TV show.
Yeah, I think that's where I think maybe Liam showed it to me recently, but yeah, this is one that I was surprised got on 4K. And I know they were talking about making a new one and they wanted Fred Ward, I think that's the actor, and they wanted Kevin Bacon to come back, but it didn't happen for whatever reason.
Amazon was going to make a series with both of them in it. Or no, Fred Ward's, I think he's passed, hasn't he? Maybe not.
Maybe not, but
I know it was going to be a Kevin Bacon led sequel series, and obviously we were going to have Burton, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. The guy, the father from
Michael Gamble, is it?
Or Michael Gross?
Michael Gross sounds more right.
Yeah, and he's the only one. He's the connecting tissue that's in every single one of the films, even the Jamie Kennedy ones. Yeah. So I mean, he's made an entire career off of making 7 of these movies.
Yeah, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, that's cool. And Arrow Video has very rarely put out a shitty release. I don't own many of their Blu-rays and 4Ks. I have RoboCop. I still want a copy of Battle Royale, but I haven't been able to find one for a non-ludicrous price.
Well, and this is the thing. Right now, they got a sale going on. So MSRP of $50 for their 4K releases, $25 right now.
Oh, wow.
So it's like not every single title is like that, but if you look at it, you're basically getting 2 for 1.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that's not bad at all. Sorry about that, folks. I dropped my microphone because my leg is on fire.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so I would say there's other Arrow videos that we had this year. It's just this was the one that surprised and impressed me the most, and it's on sale.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a classic 90s movie with a cult following, it's absolutely worth checking out. So, again, going back to the land of toys, because Michael likes toys. I did mention I was going to talk about another Transformer. This one again comes courtesy of Hasbro, and this one I like Dark of the Moon. I know, or not Dark of the Moon. Sorry, Revenge of the Fallen. Let the comments come at me. I'm under enemy scrotum. Thank you, John Turturro.
Isn't that the one where we couldn't make out the difference between any of the characters because it was so blurry in theaters until they fixed it on Blu-ray?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not wrong there. I'm not saying anything about the quality of the movie. I'm saying I think that was the one that was actually physically hard to watch.
Yeah. So the toy that these guys sent me to review was Grindor and Ravage. And you might be saying, Grindor, don't you mean Blackout? Well, yes and no. Blackout was a military-style helicopter that you see in the opening moments of the Michael Bay movie and was featured very heavily in the trailers. Another similar-looking Decepticon was in Dark of the Moon, and one of his little buddies he could drop off was Soundwave's little dude of Ravage, who is, one of Soundwave's cassette tapes. And we don't see Ravage again. I'm pretty sure in Dark of the Moon we see Laserbeak, but we don't see Ravage. But anyway, this is one of the best representations of the Bayverse Transformers, which you either love these designs or you hate these designs. I think the Autobots got cooler and easier to define features.
Well, but that's always been the scary thing, is when making a toy with something as intricately detailed as all the little tiny parts that you see in those Bay movies. Like, there's always been the daunting task of how expensive do you have to make the toy to make it look real. And I've seen some of these ones that you're having here, and I'm really surprised at the quality.
Yeah, like Grindor is a Decepticon, and his robot mode, which is this military helicopter, looks awesome. There's even a thing that sticks out the front, which is meant to the thing that helicopters would use for refueling, I think, which is really cool. And just the fact that you can't get the original Blackout from Transformers 2007, but Grindor from Revenge of the Fallen is really easy to find. It's a transformation. Take your time with it. and it's rewarded. But it's a great looking robot mode because, like I was saying, the Autobots look good. The Decepticons have cooler vehicles because they're usually meant on like war machines, like jets, planes, tanks, whatever. He's a helicopter and looks awesome. And in all the Bay movies, very few of the Decepticons I felt looked as cool as Brawl, who was the tank from the first movie, and Blackout. And I always wanted a Blackout toy, but couldn't afford it at the time. And having Grindor with Ravage is pretty awesome. So if I ever choose to pick up the Studio Series Soundwave, which is a smaller version where he was the car, well, at least I've got, kind of Ravage to hang out with him. And that's pretty cool. So it's a giant figure. It retails for about $80. Totally worth it, especially if you like the Michael Bay movies. Hey, no judgment here. And next year, they're going to be releasing more Studio Series based on Bumblebee, Brawn, Ratchet, and Soundwave. Soundwave's in a Voyager class, so he should be about $60 or above. He looks phenomenal, but even Brawn and Ratchet look really great. I'm glad to see more of the more realistic G1 inspired designs get released, but in terms of the Bayverse stuff, Grindor and Ravage cannot be beat for the level of detail and quality, and he stands really well, which is another thing a lot of toy collectors don't necessarily think about, but some do. He stands great and he looks awesome.
Yeah, like I mean, it's I'm always surprised at how much innovation's happening in the, like, I'm so out of the game when it comes to toys. So like to me, like I remember ball joints being the cool new thing, and now it's like
ball and socket joints and hidden ones. Oh yeah, like there's so much innovation that happens, and Hasbro is one of the innovators when it comes to making things. Like I would love to see what happens when Transformers are prototyped. Like, how do you make the transformations easy? How do you decide this? How do you decide that?
And just the molding has got to be hard to just, like, if you're a tool and die maker working on these molds, like that is an art in itself.
Yeah, like there is some great engineering going on. And that's why with a lot of the more expensive Hasbro stuff, I'll go to bat for it because it's really awesome. Now, I'm not saying you should spend $800 on the HasLab Unicron, but I'm seeing a lot of those come up for sale recently for over $3,000 plus. But that's a story for a different day.
That's just scalpers. But yes, moving on to something that you can get physical, but I think if you needed to go digital, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and that's Cruise and Blast. Now, this is my personal, like, there's been other bigger budget racing games come out. This is my personal favorite racing game of the last year, maybe the last couple of years.
Oh wow.
And not just like nostalgia goggles on, oh, I feel like I'm at the bowling alley playing Cruising World or Cruising USA again. No, it's just there's a bit of that. It is, when you take an arcade style racing game and distill it down to just the pure elements that make those games fun from the 80s and 90s, this is the logical progression. Like, to me, it's like if you had talked to me in 1999 and said, what would a super high fidelity looking next generation Nintendo or Dreamcast arcade game look like, this is what it would be. I had more fun playing and unlocking all the cars in this game than I have in probably the last 5 years of arcade style racing games. It's like, I don't think it got nominated for any awards this year at like the Game Awards or anything else. It should have been, for just how amazingly garish some of the designs are. Like, it's so bright and colorful, and you wouldn't think that it works, but it does. And here's a key point. It's a Nintendo Switch game that appears to be locked at 60 frames per second and almost never slows down. Like this was, it's like the dream piece. It's like a Nintendo game that doesn't have slowdown from a third-party company that is super fun, is getting good reviews. But I feel like a lot of the younger generation, like kids born after the year 2000, don't know what the cruising games were like. So they might be a little trepidatious to this and think, hey, well, what makes this game special? It's like, well, you got to play it to feel it. And like, there's just something about popping wheelies when you're like, you do your boost and you can pop a wheelie. and in like a truck, or you can drive a UFO, or you can drive like it's like the back of the day when, remember on the N64 you'd have games like that where it's like, what do you drive? An own ice cream cart, or I'm driving a giant big wheel. Like it's one of those things. There really isn't any other game like it that even ascribes to the same aesthetic out in the market right now, and it's in my like top 5 games of the year.
It was one of the ones that I was always curious about because I'm always looking for a fun arcadey racer that I can maybe play with Blair. And you could totally do that. And the races don't, like, you could play a bunch of quick races that last like 2-3 minutes a piece. And like a big thing is, I am not a fan of open world racing games where I have to drive to a location to just start a race. So not like Forza, for example.
Nope. And there's nothing wrong with those games if you like that. I like to be able to turn the game on and within 30 seconds select where I'm going to go and load in and play. And that's what this is like. You select your map, go.
Cool. All right, yeah, that sounds fairly fun. So we're going to move on to my selection, and this is a big box set. I literally just got it yesterday. So I obviously have not watched every single movie in this collection, because when I tell you what it is, you're going to be like, oh, well, that makes sense. And I'm talking about, from Warner Brothers, I got Middle-earth 6-film Ultimate Collector's Edition, 4K Ultra HD, plus the Blu-rays, plus digital, plus an exclusive bonus disc with the cast reunion. What can I say about Lord of the Rings? This is a movie that redefined what a movie could be, because for many it was considered unfilmable because it was so huge. And one of the famous stories that goes with it, well, Peter, you want 2 movies, and that's cool and all, but what if I gave you 3? Okay. And we got the original Lord of the Rings trilogy in the early 2000s. And then obviously, what's that smell? My precious? No, money. And we got the Hobbit trilogy. And it's really awesome to see these movies in 4K because, one, I'm not sitting in a dark, dingy theater with something really inappropriate happening beside me. I'll have to tell that story off air at some point.
Twig After Dark was returning.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just say, I want to watch Frodo and not you. This is mildly uncomfortable.
There's a reason that I like the Magic Mike movies, but I would not have gone to the theaters to watch them.
Yeah, no. But yeah, like Warner Brothers has really done a fantastic job with the set, especially to bring up a 4K resolution scan of these movies. I know some of the special features are not there as much as I would like. So in terms of an Ultimate Collector's Edition, it falls just a little short. But if you really can't wait to go back to Rivendell, if you really need to see the Ghost Army and Viggo Mortensen kick the shit out of the ring wraiths and all those guys, this is it, man. Like, it's one of these things to watch the extended editions is the true vision of these movies. And everybody always jokes like, have you seen the Lord of the Rings marathon? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is something that'll take you days to get through. And I kind of appreciate that because I like fantasy, and Tolkien-esque fantasy is a little bit different than most. I mean, the guy invented Elvish, for Christ's sakes. So when he goes deep, he goes deep. And there's something about these movies that is very timeless in a sense. I mean, okay, with the exception of Legolas skateboarding down on a shield, I'm willing to let that go. But there's something magical about these movies, and having such a high definition collection is awesome. And if you can watch these with my one caveat for this, you got to have the best 4K experience you possibly can.
So make sure you get a 4K TV with Dolby Vision.
Yes, and if you can watch
which are not as expensive as you might have previously thought. You can get them in the $500 price range now.
Yeah. And I also recommend, if you can watch this with the best sound setup you can or the best headphones you can afford, you are in for such a treat. And it's really cool.
Like if you want to watch the 4K and you have a PlayStation 5 with the disc version and you have the PlayStation headset with the spatial surround on, I imagine that would sound amazing.
Yeah, like there's so much that's done right here. And there was a set that was released last year that we reviewed on this show. This is bigger than that. The packaging is really cool. They give you these like little card thingies.
Isn't like 31 discs? It's like every
Yes.
version of the game available, or
Yeah.
version of the show or movies available. Sorry.
Yeah, like here is everything you could possibly want minus a few things.
The only thing that's missing are the original VHS tapes.
Yeah, pretty much. Plus, Peter Jackson coming over to your house to, give you a high five.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
and watch it with you.
Yeah, like this is about as close as you're gonna get. So if you want to sit in and have yourself some second breakfast with potatoes, then I cannot recommend Middle Earth 6-film Ultimate Collector's Edition on 4K.
I want to cut that audio and use that forever with you.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in my ass. That's the meme that came out of that. But anyway,
oh God.
Up to you, buddy. Follow that one.
All right. Well, this came in this week, recently from Paramount, and that is the Wolf of Wall Street 4K edition. Now, there's two variants of this. There's the standard edition that comes with a cardboard slipcase, and then what I was sent was the steelbook.
Yep, same here. I also had the steelbook.
So you got it. Yeah, it magically showed up at my door one night, and I went, "Ooh, what's this?" And then I went, "Oh, that's right, this was coming out." And
look, it's capitalism gone wrong. Oh,
yeah, pretty much. Well, I guess capitalism gone right because it's a really good set.
Yeah.
As far as special features go with it, it includes everything that was previously released on Blu-ray, plus 2 additional features that were not there before. One feature is like a making of on how it was so difficult to make. I think to this date, it's Scorsese's last film that was filmed entirely on film.
Oh, wow. So he did that like kind of Netflix one digital?
Yeah, because they couldn't, it was going to be too difficult to get the film grain right and do the digital de-aging stuff. So they had to add film grain afterwards. But you know what I mean? Like it would look weird if you had CG characters on top of film grain.
Mm-hmm.
Because they like it's not that they like used makeup to make them look younger than that. It's like CG. So this was like one of the last big was also the fact that it's a 3-hour comedy is a hard thing to film in the first place. There's also a round table on there as well. That's a new feature. But the big thing here is it's in 4K for the first time, and it is one of the sharpest and best looking black comedies ever. And I remember seeing this in theaters and just the whole theater in stitches with like we're not expecting it to be as funny as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice going back and watching it again. It's obviously a pristine picture. The steelbook case is pretty neat too. It's a picture of DiCaprio's face. Now, only nitpick I have is I would have loved if the steelbook was of him with that meme where it's him pointing at the TV.
Oh, yeah.
They always end up using people always use it on YouTube whenever somebody's like, oh, they said the name of the movie in the movie. Like it would have been great if it was just him sitting on the couch with the beer in the one hand and the smoke and pointing at the TV instead of just his face. But I don't know. I'm not the creative force behind Paramount, but I would have done that. Other than that, it's a pretty phenomenal release. And I feel like I almost feel like there's a lot of people that know the memes but haven't actually seen the movie.
Yeah, and this was my first time seeing it too, because again, I know the memes, I don't know the movie, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Yeah, so thank you for Paramount for sending this over. And that's one thing I kind of look forward to with Gift Guide. We get a chance to pick whatever we want for consideration, or we get sent for consideration. And this is one of those movies that's been sitting in my Netflix queue forever. But in this age of streaming and digital rights removal, you don't know if this movie's randomly going to disappear. So I've got a hard copy. I've got the best possible version of it. So
and
I'm
steelbook for a Christmas present, steelbook is always a good way to go to.
Absolutely. Speaking of Paramount, my choice also comes from the Giant Mountain. And this is the G.I. Joe 3 movie collection on Blu-ray and 4K. So that's Snake Eyes, which was in theaters earlier this year, but it also is G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra and G.I. Joe Retaliation. And we've talked about this a little while ago on the show because me and Alex both reviewed the G.I. Joe movies, and I think you did Snake Eyes recently.
Yep, because I saw it in theaters and then saw the 4K. So individually, we talked about how the picture was so good, and they've now bundled them together with a slipcover.
Yeah, so having all three movies in the quote-unquote new continuity of G.I. Joe is really awesome because despite what people may say about the movies themselves, I think they were pretty respectful to the franchise as a whole. And Snake Eyes suffered because, frankly, COVID, and there wasn't enough advertising behind it, I think.
And I feel, because I went and saw it in theaters, and I feel that in the theater I was in, people seeing previews for this movie, and then after that they showed previews at that theater for
Shang-Chi, right?
Shang-Chi. People thought they were the same movie.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate.
And it's I don't think it's like a conscious racism thing or anything. It's just how they were marketed. A lot of people that were casual viewers saw it and thought they were the same movie because it's like, swords, kung fu, action, crazy movie. Like, I saw somebody actually scratch their head and go, wait, I thought this was a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So I feel it was marketing and timing. Just, I feel it was the perfect storm. Because it was a solid. It's the best of the three.
Yes, definitely, because you do get background on Snake Eyes, which is admittedly kind of goofy because he doesn't get into the costume until the last couple minutes of the movie. Big spoiler, that everybody knew that. But they talk about the Baroness, the rise of Cobra, the fact that they support terrorist cells all over the world for whatever reason.
It's a visual treat, cinematography-wise.
Yeah, like seeing some of the fight scenes between Snake Eyes and Tommy, who plays Storm Shadow, is really cool. There's this other female character whose name I can't remember. I think Scarlet's in it. She has her crossbow.
We have like ninja grandmas.
yeah, it's really cool, and they do things with the Hard Master, who's very much part of the lore of G.I. Joe. They actually have a brief interview with one of the creators, actually the creator, Larry Hama, I think it is, on one of the featurettes on Snake Eyes. If I did have one complaint, I wish the features were a little bit longer, but if you are a G.I. Joe fan, I really think this is pretty much essential viewing to get a live action view, because the movie from 1987, Don Johnson and Sergeant Slaughter fighting the Penguin, aka how the hell? Yeah, Meredith going, I am no, he's not Serpentor, he's Globulus. That's it.
With the scenes that were clearly cut, like in that movie, you
Duke's in a coma. He's okay.
Yes, because all the kids crying at the Transformers, but also there's that scene where he gets stabbed in the eye. It's cut so abruptly in that movie. It's clear they animated it, and then they got an R rating, so they had to pull it.
Yeah, and like somebody got mad.
Yeah, and we've never actually seen it. I was once a man. It's goofy. It's fun. We love it. It's probably best known for how amazing they spent 90% of their budget on the intro.
Yeah, but the theme song's awesome.
It's like they got like TMS to do the intro, and then everything else was animated poorly. And then I feel like each of the G.I. Joe movies, the live action ones, each one was better than the one that came out before it. Yeah,
because Rise of Cobra established the world, and having Channing Tatum as Duke was great casting, but then his star blew up and he literally gets blown up in retaliation. But the new group of Jays are likable with Flint and Lady J and Roadblock and everything. And then with Snake Eyes, you do get the idea, the Joes, like the lore's there. And I want to see a sequel. I want to see Snake Eyes again. I want to see him and Storm Shadow fight out.
Yeah, they're doing a big push for Paramount Plus, so maybe it won't be a theatrical movie, but I'd be down for a sequel on the network.
Yeah, like if you did a small scale G.I. Joe series, just give me like the Dreadnoks, give me Dr. Mindbender, give me the Bats, which stand for Battle Android Trooper. You could have a lot of fun with it.
How about you get Don Johnson to play instead of Duke? He was
Flint.
Was he Flint or Falcon?
I can't remember. I think he was Flint.
Get him to play General Hawks.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Throw a little wink in there, or just get Sergeant Slaughter to play Sergeant Slaughter at the training academy.
Yeah, because he would do it, and it'd be awesome.
He'd be playing himself.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
So-
like, all right, you maggots. That'd be awesome to see the pit, or maybe this would require more money, but you could just buy the stock footage and be like, hey, where are the Joes training? The USS Flag. That would be awesome.
Second, who would you get to play before we move on a tangent? Who would you get to play Serpentor?
Oh man, I want someone really over the top.
Over the top, big, but not necessarily super goofy.
You know who I think could pull it off, but if you make him a little bit more evil, this one's going to come out of left field because I liked what he did in Star Wars. I think you could get Adam Driver to pull off Serpentor if you made him just a little more menacing.
I feel he has to have either a European sound to his voice or be really big. I'm thinking Michael Fassbender.
I could see that. As long as I get this, I command. I'm and that flying chariot.
So we either go there or we go like way, way over the top and you get like a Jim Carrey or somebody.
I was also thinking that because Robotnik, plus, by the way, as we're recording this, Sonic 2 looks awesome, by the way.
I just want to see Jim Carrey screaming at the top of his lungs, Cobra, la 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 la.
All right, moving on to your pick.
All right, my next pick is Persona 5 Strikers.
Damn right. Oh my God, I had so much fun with this. But it took me forever to beat because dying.
Yeah. Yes, I was going to say, I paused because I knew you'd have something to say. Earlier in the year release, I think a lot of people forgot February. It came out this year. People thought it probably came out last year, but it is probably my pick for action game of the year.
Oh, wow. That's
like action. Wow. It's got RPG elements. I mean, it's a full-fledged sequel. There's more plot in this than most games of its type. It's the best of the
Bushi type, I think they call it.
Bushu or whatever it is, the Dynasty Warrior style. It's the best one released, especially if you're, I don't know how it would play on the Switch, but like you're playing it on PlayStation 4 or PS5 and backwards compatibility.
It's buttery smooth.
Yeah, 60 frames per second, never drops. The animation flows perfect. They got all the same voice actors back. There's
also some really great kind of new characters that are introduced. Although we should add, it is a sequel to vanilla Persona 5, not Royal.
Yes. So you're not going to get the 2 extra characters that were added to that or the storyline that happens there. I don't think they could do anything to change that because I believe it was in development at the same time. Right. So regardless, it is probably one of the unsung heroes of the early part of the year when we had a dry spell of everything being enhanced remakes of previous generation games. It was a brand new release that wholly consumed me, and also for the type of game that it is, had another really good story that made you think.
Yeah, like it's honestly really good. So the Phantom Thieves, they're back for a reason and not what you might think, and it advances everybody's story enough that if they wanted to leave these characters behind and their personas, you could, but it does leave the door open if they want to do more. But overall, I was really impressed with it. This game took me months to beat because this one I was having my gallbladder and my liver problems. So I finally beat it. I started it on launch day. Then I went in the hospital for a while, but I finally finished it in, I think, June or July, and I loved it. It was such a fun experience. And the fact that you can't just power your way through this, you really got to think about combat. Well, it adds a new wrinkle to it.
And as of this recording, speaking of, we got to keep an eye out. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is getting a port to modern consoles. That was it was a pretty early release on the PS3.
Yeah, I
like
had
2010 or something like that.
2010, 2011 at the latest. I had it for PS3. I reviewed it years ago.
Which is funny. You reviewed it without ever playing the game that it was based on.
Yeah, because I was like, I recognize some of this stuff because I played a little bit of Persona 4, but I didn't get nearly as far as I should have. But this, the fighting game was fantastically well designed.
And now, when you think about it, over the holidays and maybe going into March, it might be worth actually going through and playing 4 on the PC to get ready for this.
Yeah,
because
this takes place afterwards.
Apparently, I've never played it. It's an in-canon sequel. So
that's awesome.
So you know what I mean? This is the same deal. Like they're good at making these in different genres. So I would say strikers, you can play it without having played Persona 5, but I don't know that I would recommend that. Highly recommend playing
because
the
they
game
reference so much stuff that happens.
You can enjoy it from a mechanics level, but you will get so much more if you play the game. And I know that they delisted the base game, and you can only get.
I think you can still get. If we're talking Persona 5, I think that's part of the PlayStation Plus collection.
Yes, that's the only way to get it, I believe. But that's only on PS5.
Yes.
So if you have a PS4, you can track down a disc-based version of the base
Super
game
easy.
for like $10, super cheap, or you can get the sort of enhanced edition of it, the Royal Edition, which is also generally reasonably priced. Usually goes on sale for like 20 some odd bucks. It would be a good 1-2 punch, but since we're talking about games that were released this year, this is one of the premium, top of the tier, super high quality releases.
Absolutely. So moving on to my pick, and this was unexpected because I wasn't given this by Microsoft, but I was given this by Alex, actually. I'm talking about the Xbox wireless headset for Xbox One and Xbox Series X.
Oh, yeah. Happy 40th, buddy.
Oh, my God. I wanted this headset so badly because obviously we had like I use an Astro A10, which was wired, which was fine. Astro A40s I've looked at, but I don't know if I want to spend that. And I looked at it mostly from accessibility because the battery lasts something like 15 hours plus.
It's about, I would say, unless you have it on max, it's probably about 20 hours.
Yeah, and the sound quality is phenomenal on it. Like I'm playing Halo Infinite again, and it's really easy to hunt down the audio logs because the spatial thing in this is really well done. And it's a good headset. When me, Alex, and Liam would hang out playing Call of Duty Zombies or whatever, I'd be on this headset, and I have been since the end of September. It sounds great. Like it sounds almost as good as the microphones we're using now.
Which is quite surprising. And it blocks a lot of wind audio and stuff too, which I've noticed a lot of other headsets don't. I picked up a pair for myself too because I was like, hey, this is like the only one that doesn't require a dongle to be plugged into your system.
Yep, and that was a big selling point for me too. Now there's even a variation of this headset where you can get the 20th anniversary version of this too, which in the link, I just linked it to xbox.com where you can pick it up. You can find the original release in stores. Good luck. But the 20th anniversary version looks pretty cool too. But this is, if you own a next gen console, this is it, man.
Well, specifically if you Xbox. Own a Xbox Series, and it works on PC as well.
That I haven't tried.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm so impressed with it. It syncs automatically. It works. And that's what I love about console gaming.
Also turning it on and off you don't have to hold the button down long.
Just press it.
It makes the Xbox starting up sound.
Yes.
Which is so dumb that I think that's cool. I like that. The only thing I wish is that I wish it would give you the option, like if you plugged it into a PC, to select instead of the Xbox One / Series consoles. I wish you could switch it so that it made the sound from the original Xbox, where it sounds like a nuclear reactor going off.
Oh yeah.
One
thing I do like about this too is you can adjust the game mix and the chat mix by just rotating your ears.
Yes,
that is so useful.
Analog granular control for the chat mixer as well as the volume, and the boom mic can be folded up into the side where it's out of sight, out of mind, with a button that you can use to turn it off, which is always a good feature too.
Yeah, so that's definitely my pick right there. It's so good.
And again, to mention, it's one of those headsets that you can actually charge while you're wearing it.
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally good. Anyway, I'm excited. I love it. Totally worth it.
So on to my last regular pick, and I've picked Bravely Default 2, which I feel got shunned at the Game Awards this year. It's probably the RPG of the year I would have picked out of all the things that were shown there, and we'll have a discussion on that later on this week as well. But it was probably the most fun I was going to say original RPG, but it is a sequel. But you know what I mean? It's not a remake. It's not a enhanced version. It's an exclusive to one platform. It is at the very least my favorite Switch game of the year. Overall, it is traditional, like late 90s, early 2000s PS1, PS2 era style RPG, with some enhancements to it that bring it up into sort of the modern age. A pretty solid story. There's some parts I would nitpick here and there, but that's just me from being the guy that's played the bazillion RPGs, where I'm like, oh, it's doing this trope, but it's not. And every time I thought it was doing something, it would, spin it a little bit and make it its own. Beautiful backgrounds. The character animations are pretty good considering it's on the Switch. Solid gameplay. Easily 60 to 100 hours if you wanted to do everything in the game, which I kind of did. There's one boss battle, secret boss, that I can't beat because I don't want to grind anymore. But you don't have to grind really to beat any of the main bosses or anything. It's very well balanced. And again, came out the end of February, so I feel like a lot of people slept on it. And it's something that if you're a Switch lover, you love the old Final Fantasies of the Super Nintendo and PS1 era, it's going to be something that you'd want to check out. Or you've got a family member that want to get into it. It could even be like this, along with the Monster Hunter Stories 2, could be like, hey kids, here's your first RPG, you could play it. There's nothing like obscene in it. It's not vulgar. It's also easy on the reading. It's all voice acted. It's fun, easy to get into, not overly crazily difficult or too many systems to control. It has some really fun mind-bending stuff at the end, which is what the franchise is known for, really playing with it. Like in the past, previous games that were available on the 3DS and that had part at the end of the game where you had to yell into the screen because there's a microphone built into the 3DS.
Oh, wow.
And like your character's dying against the boss and you would be put into a loop and you'd have to shout out, "Get up!" And your character would then like hear you in the real world and get inspired to fight. And they do stuff like that with the Switch version where it plays with the UI and mind bends with you a little bit at the end. So super fun and inventive stuff. And I'll have to explain it to you off air because I don't want to spoil some of it on here. But there's stuff in there where I'm like, why aren't more games doing this? Really playing with, like, breaking the fourth wall and playing with you.
Oh, wow. That's cool, man. Yeah, I may have to check that out. I mean, I know those games are hard, but
it's not, it's really not that. This, like, there's, like, it's not hard. It's not like what you think. You just can't just run and press X to win.
Okay.
But it is not, like, if you've played Chrono Trigger, it's about that difficulty.
Okay, so that maybe I'll have to check this out. Looking forward to that. Speaking of video games, I've got a couple here, and then I have one honorable mention that is a book I covered earlier in the year. Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition. Now, Borderlands is a game that I slept on because life got in the way last year because I was in school. I had so many other things going on. But
you were the last few winters you were trying not to die.
Yeah. So 2K Games sent over Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition, and the reason I'm recommending this, all the DLC is included. So I got this on PlayStation 5. So you're getting like, oh my God, where do I start with this? There's like Butt Stallion, which is, need I say more? You're also getting
Butt Stallion, also the name of your porno.
Yeah, Butt Stallion. But yeah, like the Borderlands universe is so weird and wacky, and I know you had a really good time with the base Borderlands 3 experience, right?
Oh yeah, that was one of the ones that I remember. Like last year, I got it for Christmas on PS4, but it came with the free upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
And playing that, I played that game in co-op with my brother, and I was surprised. I was not a fan of Borderlands 2. I would say, maybe that's a hot take. I just didn't. I loved the first one, really didn't like the second one, and then the third one, I'm like, wow, like there's a lot of story here, and it's a lot of fun, and it's smooth and plays well and has that nice visual style.
Yeah, like the Borderlands universe is like the loot and the looter shooter grind that doesn't take itself super seriously, like say Destiny does, for example. It does so much right. Plus, we have Tiny Tina coming out in just a few months, and we saw a new trailer for that at the Game Awards the other night. It's going to be cool, and Borderlands 3 definitely gets me hyped to raid vaults, to do all sorts of stupid bullshit again, because ultimately that's what the Borderlands experience boils down to. Ludicrous shooting bullshit, but it's so weird and out there and colorful that I don't know, there's just something. The Borderlands experience hits different when when all you're used to is Call of Duty or Destiny or Doom or whatever. Borderlands is like, hey guys, I'm that weird cousin you talk to once a year, but I got something really weird to tell you. And that's what I like about Borderlands 3. It takes the weirdness factor, cranks it to 11, presents an interesting universe with, all sorts of cool gadgets and guns that you can get and different abilities for your like vault hunters. And there's not much more to say about it. And the fact that you're getting every conceivable thing with this, like Seasons Pass, DLC, mods, like hook a brother up, give me my assault rifle, and I'm ready to go kill some things. So Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition. I like games that are complete like this, and this was a tie-up. I was going to recommend a different game in this spot. I was actually going to recommend Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. And the reason I didn't recommend that game, because that game gets dark and serious in some points where you're like, oh, I was in a good mood until I played.
It is very, like, I enjoyed it. It's very good.
I loved it.
But I can see what you mean. It's definitely worth a mention, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yeah, Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition. Check it out. You will not be sorry. You're getting so much content. And I guess I've got a few more because I said you were out, right?
Yeah, I got my 10, and I've got 2 honorable mentions I can mention.
Okay.
If you want me to do them now?
Yeah, go for your first honorable mention, then I'll go for my 2 honorable mentions.
All right. My first one would be Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood.
Wow.
That came out right around my birthday at the beginning of February. And I feel like it's not a budget title. It's a medium budget game. It's been on sale. They have like a complete edition with extra stuff for like $30-$40 usually.
Mm-hmm.
I was pleasantly surprised. A lot of the reviewers were like, I don't know what they were expecting with it. Like, it's like they expected it to be this like AAA super expensive high budget, like
it's a good mid-range title.
Yeah, it's back in the day you used to get a lot of these titles. This is what the average A-list game was
for,
and
like the 360 and PS3 era.
Yeah, and even like the PS2, like this would have felt right at home in the PS2/PS3 era. And it's just the right length. You're looking at 10-15 hours of play. Good gameplay, great audio, soundtrack. I hope there's going to be more. I know that Nacon has a license for a lot of these World of Darkness games.
And this is your first experience with World of Darkness stuff, isn't it?
I had seen little bits and pieces there. This is my first time ever with the Werewolf franchise.
Yeah.
I probably played one of the vampire games back in the day.
I think you played Wraith in VR this year, didn't you?
Yeah, well, that was right after.
Yeah,
and if I wasn't thinking about VR, that would be an honorable mention for a VR title for sure. And that was terrifying. VR, good lord,
ghosts. Yeah,
I almost peed my pants more than one time. But yeah, Werewolf is if you're looking for, again, a stocking stuffer, because you can get a physical copy, and it's not like in Canada you're looking at $80 or $90 for a next gen title. I have seen retail copies of this go for like 40.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth that because I'm a big fan of the Werewolf IP. We actually know one of the writers for Werewolf and Mage and everything. And stuff like this got me reinvigorated into Werewolf again. Like, I pulled out all my tribe books. I remember what my auspice was. I think there was a time, folks, I was so into Werewolf. I knew my auspice. I knew what tribe I would be. Basically, very early in the days of MySpace and LiveJournal, I remember taking all those personality quizzes And I think I was a glass walker or a child of Gaia, which is really weird because they're so diametrically opposed. But if you know my personality,
it's been almost a year. I think the Children of Gaia, I believe that's the pack you're a part of. And
you're fighting the Black Spiral Dancers.
Yeah, because you're in. Yeah, that's right. Because you're like an eco warrior. Now, I'll say this before you go on. They lead it into that there could be sequels made for it, and if they keep the budget the way it is, and they keep the gameplay as tight as it is, and the loop, maybe improve little things here and there, this is the kind of game you could make every 2 years. You don't have to wait like 5 years to get a game like this. So hopefully Nacon and the developers, like they could plan for one of these, maybe integrate it. It's being set up in the game, without spoiling anything, to be part of a larger connected universe of all of the World of Darkness stuff. And this seems to be like the first in the style. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a vampire game from them, because they have other games coming up. The Vampire the Masquerade game
I want Hunter the Reckoning or a Mage game. Mage would do awesome in the Telltale style.
Yeah. So, but I think that this is a good action-packed game that is like, if you're looking for like, I know $30-$40 is not necessarily stocking stuffer, but if you're, on a budget, you've already got a couple presents and you're looking for something that somebody can play and beat in, let's say that like the week or two that they've got off. If you got a teenager or somebody that's off school, this is something you can play and beat within a month.
Yeah.
And not worry about it.
If they're into anything World of Darkness, if they play 5th edition, whether they're classic World of Darkness fans, this is pretty much a no-brainer.
Or if you just like tearing
werewolves
people apart while Aboriginal New Zealand heavy metal plays in the background and they're screaming at you, that's the game for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so moving on to my first honorable mention, and this is a game that has consumed my life every single day. I bet you even Alex doesn't know this. So Far Cry 6, we reviewed this game earlier in the year, and I'm kind of changing my review, as I think this may be my game of the year, or at least in the top 2, because my other one will surprise you. But the reason I recommend Far Cry 6 is it's a cool story. Giancarlo Esposito, is that his name?
Giancarlo Esposito, yes.
Esposito, yes. He plays this Yaren dictator, which is a fictional Cuba, more or less. You play as Danny Rojas, either a boy or the girl. Play as the girl. Her dialogue is so much better.
Yeah, nothing against the voice actor for the male character. The female character is much more robust.
More fun, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like they do something they call insurgencies. Once you beat the game, you fight the remainder of the FND army, and it changes up end game content each week. And you go to a different area that's already been cleared, you re-clear it again, but you get unique weapons and money that can be spent in this store from this operator called Lola. You can get new guns, you can get new things that you can't get anywhere else. And some of those weapons and armors you can pick up in her black market shop are only available in the paid DLC store. So you can start building out your collection without having to pay real world money to get, something from the Rainbow Six operator pack. As of this recording, the D-Reser's in it, and that's the gun that's more or less from like the Daft Punk pack. They've got a Breaking Bad, literally licensed Breaking Bad pack in there.
Well, not to mention the expansion pack is starting to release stuff. We've got, which is
Boss DLC just came out.
Which each DLC that's coming from that package is a new game mode or little mini campaign where you're playing as the villains of the previous games from their own perspective.
Yeah, like the first one is called Voss Insanity. I'm not a huge fan of it so far, but it's only because I'm so weak. I got to get better. It turns Far Cry into a roguelike, and I typically hate those games, but I also really like Jupiter Hell this year, so figure that one out.
And that was and I really liked Returnal, which I normally hate that style of game, so I'm giving it a try.
Yeah, like it's fun, and like I said, there's so much to do. Collecting the cars. As of this recording, I just got the last car. I've got every paint job, every horn.
And is the Danny Trejo stuff live now?
Not yet, but I did play it the night that it was live because I just happened to be playing it. And that was a lot of fun with Danny Trejo's tacos, and hopefully you get to keep the Machete motorcycle, which is ludicrously overpowered. But yeah, it was tremendously fun. So Far Cry 6 is one of my top games of the year. I had a lot of fun with it. I really wish I got the collector's edition with the Resolve flamethrower, but or the chorizo doll, but whatever. And you also get a chicken that can blow up trucks. So what's not to love?
Oh, Chicharron. Yeah.
Chicharron.
Yeah. That mission where you have to follow him, and he really doesn't like
people and pottery.
He doesn't like federales, and he doesn't like pottery.
It's really weird, folks. It's totally worth it, though. All right, Alex, you got one more honorable mention. What do you got?
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Good pick. I never played this one.
I didn't put it in my main list because I feel like a lot of people know that it exists. It's also exclusive to PS5, which I know not everybody has a console yet. If you happen to get your hands on a console for the holiday season, or you already own one, this is the game. I know that there's Demon Souls, and then there's Returnal, and a couple others. Obviously, there's Final Fantasy, the enhanced version. This is the next gen game. As much as there are stuff on the Xbox that say that the next gen, this is right now. We've seen at the Game Awards games coming up that are going to be truly next gen looking and feeling. This is the only one that so far to me has delivered on what the promise of next gen could be, outside of the demo that came on the system for the Astro's Playroom. This is one of the most, like, it's like you're playing a Pixar game, like you're in the movie basically. Great art direction, amazing audio, visually a treat, a feast for the eyes. And again, I'm thinking something that's family friendly. Anybody can play it from, ages 4 to 90. I can't see anybody that would really have a problem with this game.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Plus I saw some of the artwork of the female Ratchet.
And don't come at me. If you're 91, sure, you can play it if you want to.
But yeah, like, it looked really cool, and it's one of the PlayStation exclusives I kind of hope I get randomly sent as like a Christmas gift or something. But yeah. So my final one, this is a book, and I actually interviewed some people surrounding this, but this is from, I think, Hero Collector. But you can get this via Amazon or your local retailer, and it's called Star Trek Shipyards, Star Trek Starships 2294 to the Future, 2nd edition, the Encyclopedia of Starfleet Starships. And the reason I'm recommending this game is I was reading through some of the classes for the ships, and I just realized there's one ship, I think it's called the Niagara class, and it is one of the few Starfleet ships that has a third nacelle on it, and I think it's similar to a Galaxy in some regards, but there's also a detailed rundown on the Akira class, which we saw in Star Trek First Contact, the one that had the really weird kind of Reliant Miranda class kind of bar in the middle that was shooting torpedoes attacking the Borg cube. There's things like the Challenger class they outline. There's even stuff from Star Trek Discovery in there that they like kind of talk about. And it just, if you are running a Star Trek Adventures game, this would be the great book to introduce new classes that maybe necessarily haven't been written yet, because Aaron writes all the starships. Actually, I would love for him to give me the Niagara class as, hey, Mike, here's a Christmas gift. But no, like, seriously, reading through this book and seeing all the high-res pictures and scans and blueprints, it's really awesome. And I've been a Trek fan that has mostly only gotten back into it because of the role-playing game and because of Lower Decks. I'm not a big fan of Discovery, but I like the classic era stuff, or TNG Voyager, etc. And it was pretty awesome. Like, I really had such a good time reading this. It was very hard to put down. And just the fact that, maybe someday I can compete with Aaron on knowledge of starships. Here's spoiler, it's not going to happen. But this is about as close as I'm ever going to get to knowing the level of intricacy.
He will take you to school and put the dunce hat on you.
Pretty much like, oh, you thought that was on deck 15? How cute.
But he will do it in a very nice way. As to try to make you not feel stupid. But then you'll realize it, and you'll be like, I still feel stupid.
Like, hey, you made me feel dumb. Tee. But no, like seriously, this book was such a fun read. Like I couldn't believe how much fun I had just kind of going through it. So Star Trek Shipyards, Star Trek Starships, 2294 to the Future, second edition, the Encyclopedia of Starfleet Starships. If you're a Star Trek fan and you don't want to worry about the Gamma Quadrant and Delta Quadrant, which those books are also available, if you just want pure Starfleet, this is it. I loved it. Cannot recommend this book enough. It was so much fun cover to cover. And I think that's it, man.
Yeah, like there's so many more things I would like to talk about, but you can't inundate people with everything. If you're looking for some other ideas, obviously in the last couple of weeks we've had reviews come out. It might be something. Or you can honestly contact either one of us in social media and be like, hey, is there anything else you can recommend? Or what about this? And very likely, if it's a game or movie that's come out in the last little bit, we probably have an opinion on it.
Yeah, or if it's like any of the major like kind of role-playing company stuff, I can talk about that too. Like I said, I've got a bunch of D&D books. I am going to do more in-depth reviews of them for Alex's Turd or Treasure Show. So be looking for that. So in terms of the show here, we do have one more bit of content, which is the Game Awards, which we'll be talking about those. But the TWIG live show comes back on Monday, January 17th. So be looking for that. But in the spirit of the holidays, I want everybody out there to have a safe and happy holiday. Please follow local health guidelines, as I know things have changed depending on where you live. Long story short, get vaccinated, get your booster shot if you're eligible, and
wear your damn mask if you're in a big public setting. Don't drink and drive. Don't be a moron, and be happy with your family and friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like Christmas, the holidays should be a time where everybody can get together and put aside whatever problems. And this year has been more problematic than most with families fighting, and that's just the world that we live in. But for one night, be it Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, or even if you don't celebrate it.
If you don't celebrate it, still reach out to your family and friends, and whether you can meet in person or not, just be nice to each other. It wouldn't kill you to be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Being nice costs nothing, but it can reward someone in ways you can't imagine. So from myself, This Week in Geek, and any other podcast that I work with, I would presume, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, any other non-denomination with religions I'm probably forgetting. But long story short, guys, have a happy holiday. So Alex, what do you have to add? And anything at all?
I was going to try to think of something really funny to say, but that's not really going to fit here. So I'll say, make sure you can relax, watch some funny movies. I highly recommend doing the Alex special, which is watching Bad Santa 1 and 2 back to back. But that's just my wicked sense of humor. If not that, traditions in our family were to watch The Wizard of Oz when it used to air on TV. But since I don't have regular over-the-air television anymore, I'm just probably going to watch it via a streaming platform.
Me and Blair will be watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Die Hard, and we will have a Christmas gift for you guys on Christmas morning. You will have our TWIG commentary of Ernest Saves Christmas if the weather cooperates and everything else works out.
Yes. Asterisk, point of note, as long as nothing goes crazy, we will have one out.
Yes, exactly.
And barring any major problems, if there isn't one for Christmas, then there'll be one for New Year's.
Yeah, maybe we'll do the movie Strange Days, which is a New Year's movie. So anyway, folks, thank you once again for being here for this entire year. Thank you to all our partners who sent us stuff for consideration. Like I said, there was so much more I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Resident Evil Village. I wanted to talk about Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. So much more, but here's our picks. And I don't know, maybe Metroid Dread. But anyway, so until next year's holiday gift guide, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, kiss my ass. We'll see you in 2021 or 2022, whatever. Time travel.
We'll see you when Michael doesn't fuck up the ending.
That's right. Good night, Gracie.
Oh, Mrs. Shirley, we got your Christmas card the other day, and my family and I are very flattered that you remembered us. corporate cards.
Don't forget that report, Bill.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Kiss my ass. Kiss his ass. Kiss your ass. Happy Hanukkah.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.